Do you have to pay for QR codes or are QR codes free? And also, how long do they last? Well, in this video, I'll answer all of those questions and compare free against paid QR codes and when do you need each one. Hello internet people, my name is Robert and I help creators with the tech side of their business. Just so you understand the rest of the video, you can think of QR codes as text, but instead of the letters, it uses little blocks as characters. And only computers understand these blocks. Then you have the static QR codes and dynamic. And I think it will be just easier to follow with some visuals for this. So let's take a look at the difference between static QR code and dynamic. So static is simple. You have the QR code, which you generate from, let's say, URL. This is a URL you want people to go to once they scan. And you see these little blocks. This is basically what it means. This is exactly same thing, but with these little blocks. If I change this dash 1 to dash 2, these little blocks will rearrange themselves. So it's like hard-coded into the QR code. So what you see here is same as the URL here. Whereas with dynamic QR codes, they work slightly differently. You have the QR code, and once you scan it, you actually go first to this URL, which looks the same as in the static version. But what's cool about it is that this URL will redirect you to the website you actually want to go to. And that means no matter what you changed here, this URL will always stay the same, and that means the dynamic QR code will always stay the same, and you don't need to reprint it. Even if you want it for this to go instead of Google, you want it to go to your website, you can change it, and it's super easy to do. Another kind of cool thing is, I want to show you here, you can actually, this URL can also have your domain name, so qr.yourdomain.com, and then you can add whatever. So you can brand this URL. And why would you do that? Well, because people, when they scan the QR code, there's a little preview of what website they will go to, right? So I created this little table to compare static versus dynamic QR codes. But at this point, I do want to mention that I'm a little biased because I've created a tool. It's a QR code generator, and it's called QR Code Cactus. Here it is. And basically it has free QR codes, which are the static ones. And then you have also dynamic QR codes, which are paid ones. And you can see here in pricing what they can do. But I'll try to keep it as honest as possible because there are benefits to both. Static and dynamic QR codes are good for different reasons. First of all, static QR codes, when it comes to pricing, they win every time just because most QR code generators will provide them free. And when it comes to dynamic QR codes, for example, with my tool, it starts at $7 per month, and then you get all the features you want. Some of the other QR code generators, they lock you out of features, whereas with the QR Code Cactus, you get all features. It's completely based on how many scans you're expecting. Then when it comes to duration, so how long do the QR codes last? Well, with static, it works forever. Again, because it's hard-coded, whenever you print it out, it will never expire by itself. But with dynamic QR codes, it works a little bit differently, and it works while you're subscribed to the service. Now, the next feature is probably the biggest reason people switch to dynamic QR codes, and that's because you can edit it anytime. Whereas with static QR codes, it's fixed. Once you print it out, you cannot do anything. But with dynamic QR codes, even if printed out, you can always change it. Even if you want to change it every day, that's totally possible because you do it in the QR code generator's dashboard. Another big feature that dynamic QR codes come with is that it comes with scan counts, time, location, and device information. So basically you get analytics and reporting built in directly in the dashboard. Whereas with static QR codes, you don't have that unless you use third-party tools like Google Analytics 4 and UTM parameters. You can add that to the URL. And then if the URL is actually going to your website, then you'll be able to see that in GA4. Again, it's a little bit more hassle to use this because you need to every time remember to actually put the UTM parameters and things like that. So, but it's definitely still possible with static QR codes. Now, the next one, I think a lot of people don't think about it, but when it comes to scannability, and I want to show you because it's a little hard to visualize otherwise. Let's go here, and let's say this is the URL. See how these squares are certain, size. Now, let me just make it a little bit longer. I'll just, this makes no sense, but I'll just make it longer. See how when this regenerates, that the little squares, they got more dense. What if I do this again? I'll just add even more information. Well, the squares get really small. And imagine this is quite big QR code. You're not gonna see this size QR codes in real life because it's on my screen. You're probably gonna have much smaller, especially if it's on a business card or on a flyer or in a magazine or something like that. This gets really tricky to actually scan. So yeah, scannability will be a problem if you have long URLs and if the size of the QR code is small. The smaller the QR code, the less dense it has to be. So long URLs will not work in that case. With dynamic QR codes, it doesn't matter as much just because you can keep the URL short and then you put all the long stuff into the destination URL. Again, that can be business cards, maybe it's packaging and things like that. Just always test it out in real size. Don't use the big thing that you have on your screen, on your computer. You need to test it out, maybe print it on paper and test it out so that you're sure that it actually works. The next one is scan limits and expiry. So you can set these limits and expiry. For example, if you're running a campaign, some sort of offer, you want it to end in, let's say, 30 days. With static QR codes, you don't have that control unless it goes to your website, and that maybe you have more control and you can redirect people to other places. But with dynamic QR codes, you can set limits and expirations, and it's usually built into the platform. And the next one is branded URL, which I kind of already mentioned earlier, but basically it will always, for static QR codes, show the destination URL. And if it's your website, well, then it will still have the branded URL. Whereas with dynamic QR codes, even if you go to third-party websites, you can always in the preview window see your URL first, and then it will just take you to the third-party website. And obviously, you want to build a bit of brand recognition, so it's a little bit more professional looking when you have those branded previews. And then the last one is advanced security options. So with dynamic QR codes, you're able to set password protection for your QR codes. So if you don't want people to see what's on the other side, maybe it's only for your team's eyes, you can set a PIN code, and then you need to know the PIN to access the information. So are QR codes free? Well, static ones are totally free. They are great if you only need a couple QR codes here and there, and you know that in the future you're not going to need to change them, especially if you already printed them. If you want to create dozens of QR codes, have peace of mind that you can actually change them on the fly without needing to reprint them. And just if you want to see some real-time scan stats in one dashboard, you need to use dynamic QR codes. That's where QR Code Cactus comes in. You can start with a free trial. I'll leave a link in the video description. And just in general, it will save you time and hassle when dealing with QR codes. Now you know if you should pay for QR codes. And if you need help with setting up your dynamic QR codes without wasting any time or money, you should watch this video right here where I'll show you how to use QR Code Cactus to create and manage your QR codes.